All right, they said it couldn't be done, so we decided not to do it. It is Ohio Political News here on a Sunday night, and we are live, and I just want to let everybody know that we are live and in person. So if you're in the chat, we really would like to have you chat with us so that you could be a big part of it. And we've got Jennifer Gross, District 45 State Rep, joining us here. That's going to be a good show. It always is a good show. And then we've got at 8 o'clock, we're going to be looking at Seneca County and the Board of Elections and all the voting machine problems they're having in Seneca County. And so we'll have to start looking at that. Brian is with us here tonight. Good to see you. Jonathan, you're joining us here. And,
hey, everybody.
How you doing, guys? We've also got Jennifer Gross with us here tonight.
Hey, everybody.
There you are.
Hi there, Jennifer. Welcome.
There you are. Okay, so quick question here is, you went, no, wait a minute, you were just going to do something. What were you, you were going to get the debt clock. Do you have that with you? Just for the heck of it?
To get this.
Hold it still for a second so it focuses. That's the U.S. national debt
clock.
Is
that a 37 trillion? Or?
37 trillion.
37.472 trillion, 249 million. And while we sit here, it'll be a couple more million just in this show or more. And, it's why I fight against tax increases of any kind, whether it's property tax. And I hate it.
Well, we're going to do a lot of fighting with those property taxes and everything else. So, but I want to, there's a bunch of things I want to talk about. So we're going to get to some of the House bills that you're doing, like 112 and 12. But I want to talk about Charlie Kirk for just a minute here, because I think that, if I'm not mistaken, you were at an event, was it a month ago or 2 months ago, and Charlie Kirk was the main speaker there, right? Just a month ago. Yeah. So how about just, what an incredible human being he was, died at the age of 31, which is so sinful that somebody would take his death like that. But I just wanted to know if you had any, any thoughts on Charlie a little bit.
I believe that Charlie was, when you look at him, he was larger than life. And I think that a lot of us really kind of took him for granted. He was 31, and there were people who didn't really understand how huge his organization was. I believe I just heard he was bringing in $100 million a year into his organization, and his influence to go into, shall we say it, many times, the lion's den, to talk about truth and the things that the American people are speaking about. His influence became so big, it's questionable who actually was behind, the killing of Charlie Kirk. And, as someone who had boldness and courage, what a great example of compassion and grace, and someone who could attack the hard things, but also be kind. And I think that all of us could be more like Charlie. And I know that I can. I tend to be, and I'm sure some of the people listening who know me know that I just, sometimes it's just so, you just want to hit someone over the head with truth. And I think that, Charlie had he just had a way about him that was kind and generous, and he didn't demean people. Not that I do, but it's just that I think we all could be a lot more like Charlie.
Yeah, we could. But I don't know if we can ever find another Charlie. I don't know if we could ever find another Charlie there. And there was one gut-wrenching moment. I don't know. Kent, do you have that clip right there from Erica? Can you play that for a second? Do you have it?
That young man. I forgive him.
Yeah, that is such a gut-wrenching moment. That is. Look at all the people there that were for that tribute and everything. Just absolutely amazing. But that is just such a gut-wrenching. That is just such a gut-wrenching moment there with her. But she says it so well. That is the Christian thing to do, but it's the hardest thing in the world to do. So again. Yeah. Charlie cannot be replaced, unfortunately.
No. What an amazing woman. What an amazing woman, the strength of her. And, we've lost so many good ones. Like Rush Limbaugh and Charlie, and it's...
That's true.
Rush means it's time for 100 others to stand up and show courage and walk where you guys, quite frankly, walk and where I attempt to walk. I mean, not to compare ourselves to him, like you said, there's no replacement, but gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I'm going to move over here for a minute now. I'm going to switch gears with you here. Let's talk about some of your House bills. And one that comes to mind that I think is really worth discussing right now is House Bill 112, and that's the Conscientious Right to Refuse Act. So you're the main sponsor on that bill, correct?
Yep.
So it's House Bill 112. The Conscientious Right to Refuse Act. Do you want to just let everybody know what that is? We could discuss it for a minute.
Yeah, just in a nutshell, conscientious right to refuse is religious liberty and the right to say that you have a conscience that says, I don't want mandated shots, or I don't want vaccines, or I don't want a certain medical treatment, no matter where I work. And that includes healthcare providers. And I think that with what we're seeing with some of the new things about COVID and the backwalking that the FDA is doing now, as well as Secretary Kennedy. I was blessed and privileged to meet with Secretary Kennedy about a month or so ago in a private meeting with him. And his group and his advisors ethically believe that we do have a leg to stand on to say, I don't want to get an irreversible treatment. And we need to fight for that in Ohio, and we need to be sure that our people have the freedom and liberty to make their own healthcare decisions. And that's what 112 is all about.
President Trump was just talking, this is kind of along the same lines, I think, too, in a way, but he was talking about Tylenol and how it affects pregnant women and is related to autism. And he came out and said, don't take it. He's telling the pregnant women, do not take Tylenol. And that's really a big statement on his part, because he's getting all the pharmaceutical companies that just want to, crucify him for doing that. Mm-hmm. But he wouldn't be saying that if he didn't have some good, solid evidence to back it up, which he does. But of course, all the reports and everything coming out with the pharmaceutical companies is that he's wrong. There is no connection or anything like that. But autism. So this is one reason. This isn't a vaccine, I understand, so it doesn't correlate exactly with House Bill 112. But it is like we have to start refusing. I mean, if Tylenol could cause autism, and it's something as harmless as Tylenol, just think, what are we doing with these injections that we have no idea what's going into our bloodstream or anything?
Yeah, and Joe, I think that was part of it. I think that the people understand that if something that we said was safe for babies from birth and women while they're pregnant, the only drug women could take basically throughout all 9 months of pregnancy, and it was approved, then I think what he's spurring us on to do is to question, if Tylenol is at risk, couldn't everything else be at risk? And I think that's part of it. 4 grams, because I'm a nurse practitioner, 4 grams of Tylenol is the limit. And let's review. I mean, there's a lot of medications that have acetaminophen as the generic name in other drugs. So narcotics are mixed with Tylenol, and allergy medication can sometimes be mixed with Tylenol, and migraine medication can be mixed. So this is not just Tylenol alone. This is all the products that have, and that's why pharma is screaming, because it is going to, I'm sure the stocks are tanking. And that includes every product that has Tylenol in it. Especially
Tylenol stock. It's probably sinking very quickly right now, I would think. But autism, 31, listen to this, 1 in 31 8-year-olds in 2022 had autism. Now that's insane. That's insane. How can that possibly be? So there is a link now to all these prescriptions and vaccines and everything else that we're told to take. And, if you remember the good old COVID days, we were told to take that. You didn't have an option. I'm sure that's how this whole bill was designed and put forward, was because to stop that kind of takeover. But even our state government, with Amy Acton and Governor DeWine, who's saying, hey, would they put together a lottery? They were giving away $1 million if you were for that week, if you wanted to get the jab and something like that, put your name into a hat. So it's like this whole nonsense, because we're not guinea pigs, right? So this whole nonsense has to pretty much stop.
Certainly,
Yeah, go ahead.
Seems like clown world, doesn't it? I mean, when you
Yeah.
think back to pushing and pressuring people to get a vaccine, which is now no longer on the vaccine schedule, though I hear some physicians are still promoting it. And I would say if your physician is promoting this for your 6-month-old, probably time to look for a new physician. But I mean, it's just clown world. It seems like a completely different world that we were in before. And quite frankly, it was. It was a world without liberty, a world without freedom, a world where the government, you talk about government overreach, absolutely draconian. And that, unfortunately, shut down our elections in 2020. So let us not forget that at times our governor, quite frankly, seemed like Emperor Palpatine. I mean, he was tyrannical in a lot of ways. So,
and his partner in crime there was Amy Acton, who's now running for governor. So,
Joe, can I ask a question?
Talk about the irony of all of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Representative Gross.
Yes, sir.
You said that you've introduced the bill. How many other legislators are agreeing with you? Are there some that are saying absolutely no, I won't support this at all?
Yeah, in fact, right now it's stuck in the Judiciary Committee, and I had conversations with the chair. I won't name him. I'll let your people look it up. But I can't get a testimony on the bill, but I did, and to the speaker's credit, he did listen to me, quote unquote gave me an audience, and I said, I'm not getting a hearing on this bill. I don't want a bill in December of 2026, because what happens, guys, a little bit of education here. It is September of 25. Next year's election year. We don't have very many sessions. We don't have many committees next year. And the reality is, if you don't get a bill passed by June of this year, September now, the likelihood that you're going to get a bill across the line, unless leadership or the speaker or someone wants that bill passed, are very small. And so I don't have a testimony on this bill. If I have any shot at it at all, and by the way, it passed out of committee through under Chair Catrona, who's now Senator Catrona. We got it passed last year, but I can't even get a testimony. Now, I'm not going to lie, in the judiciary right now, I don't have the votes to even get it out of committee. And you have to wonder, why did they put a medical vaccine bill in judiciary? I would say...
Yeah, that doesn't sound like the right committee to have it in.
Well, I think it was
Doesn't
intentional.
sound like the right committee there. Jonathan, you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just comparing some notes here to bring everybody up to speed. A few things. I did a post on Tylenol. For anybody that doesn't know, there's a company called Kenvue. Kenvue is the parent company of McNeil Consumer. I didn't finish making my notes and bring myself back up to speed. If you find me on social media, you'll see some posts that I did about backtracking. Follow the money. Find out about the owner groups behind some of these pharmaceutical companies, because that's a key component in fighting back. Let's defund the woke, as I like to say, or in this case, defund big pharma. I talk a lot about that at unwoke.academy, which I run. You see that at the bottom of the screen under my name. That is actually a website where we uncover these sorts of things. So all these people who are very upset and alarmed about what's happening at Tylenol, and with President Trump, frankly, I applaud him for making that move. It's spectacular. There are some people who have been talking about exactly that issue for years, and apparently there are some internal notes that are kind of leaking out from Tylenol, pointing to knowledge of this and connection to potential medical issues like autism going back 7 or 8 years. If that's the case, it means that internally they knew at Tylenol. If that's the case, it's being alleged. There's another piece to this that to me is breathtaking, that I think not everybody's aware of yet. Yes, we're talking through Tylenol and its health implications, medical implications, and I'm not even, it completely just crushes my heart to think of moms out there taking this Tylenol as some sort of rebuke to President Trump, the TDS to potentially harm yourself and your baby is beyond breathtaking to me. I don't even know how to parse that in my mind. But I want to draw everybody's attention to an image of a medical map that's surfaced, and it's kind of percolating on social media. It shows most of the globe, and it shows where autism is most prevalent. And the United States is just a big, solid, bright, awful blob of color because it is most prevalent here, apparently. And according to this map and information, places that hand out Tylenol during pregnancy are top of the list. And that means United States and parts of Europe. It's just awful. And you're right. I do believe that there's sort of an entry point for people who might still be on the fence or have their head in the sand about what happened during COVID. If we can get them to the point where they can understand and get their head around big pharma acting against public interest and health interests of, for heaven's sakes, pregnant moms. If we can get people to understand that, then I think the next step for a lot of those people is finally coming to terms with what happened during COVID. In my book, I've done my research, and I believe that the jabs were nothing but pure harm to society, to mankind. That's my belief. But really getting people to that point where they can accept that, or at least begin to consider the possibility that there may be bad actors within big pharma tied to government who would do that sort of thing to mankind, to the species of humankind. That's hard for anybody to get to that point. It's hard for all of us, including me, who believes that now. I hope that this step with Tylenol proves to be a stepping stone in getting people globally to acknowledge that.
Can I say something, Jonathan? That was well said. And I think that many of us, even on this show right now, I was a vaccine zealot. People don't believe that because my Wikipedia page through Jake Zuckerman is a bunch of fabricated garbage. But if we can change and our eyes can be opened, any physician, any nurse practitioner, any person, any mother, father, it's contingent on them to be open to the possibility that we have been duped by big pharma and that no medication is safe to be taken during pregnancy or whatever. There's a risk to every single chemical we put in our bodies. And it's important that we return to our roots and, quite frankly, remember in our history when they threw doctors in jail, when they refused to go from homeopathic medicine over to allopathic medicine. And allopathic is all the drugs and all of that came with the Rockefellers. I mean, there's been so many generations since that has changed. We became complacent in that putting things in our body is, it's over the counter. What's the big deal? We now can get birth control pills over the counter, guys. And, so, I mean, we have to understand that there's risk to putting chemicals in our body. My goodness, right now, frozen shrimp is a risk. So, and that's not just for people with allergies, it probably shouldn't be nuclear and radiated. So.
That's because we believed in the Hippocratic Oath, though. I do know. It's because we were brainwashed to believe in that Hippocratic Oath where a physician will do no harm. And
Brian, half of all medical schools no longer take that oath, maybe more. So see, that's another thing. Doctors, physicians they don't have to take that oath anymore. And I would say it's at least 50%. Isn't that amazing?
That's a problem. That's a basic problem right there. But back to Representative Gross's bill. If you know how to contact me, so and I believe in getting the truth out to the people. So if this bill doesn't go anywhere, or you're not getting any support, I believe in calling out those representatives that that are not going to, support the freedom and liberty issue. That I agree with
That's
you.
right.
That's what this really is. So
And I will say,
whether
Secretary Kennedy does support the bill. And I think that when you look at his policy, you wouldn't be surprised at that. But yeah, it certainly is frustrating to be a citizen legislator who fights for the people. My aide, she's gone now, but she said, the challenge with our office is you run so many citizen bills, and what that means is that citizen-led bills for a legislator are really, really much tougher to run because the majority runs bills for lobbyists. And we should probably do a whole segment on what does it look like in Columbus. Remember, lobbyists are paid by big whatever industry, you name it, widget ABC, and they pay $2,000 a month for a lobbyist to meet with all your legislators. And then they decide they need a bill to help their business. And because they're a registered lobbyist, they meet with all the legislators, and then they write this bill. They do the co-sponsor letter. They do the sponsor testimony for the rep. And then the rep does it, and then the bill passes because they've lobbied all the legislature and they get their agenda over the line. And then the rep gets to say, look at me, I passed all these bills. And the reality is none of them were for you. Very few. I mean, I can't say none, but
Representative Gross, we have got to get that across the line so that people understand that. What you just said there, it speaks volumes, to me. And the average citizen needs to know that because they are all, they all believe that their representatives that they vote for are going to look out for what's in their best interest. And what you just said to me it reinforces what we're saying, and that is they're not looking out for the average citizen, they're looking out for their donor class.
And even if they don't donate to them, there's still the pressure of the money behind a lobbyist who's, legally registered to lobby them. And so there's a lot of things that we can do. I think it's worthy to consider perhaps not allowing a legislator within a certain amount of time to become a lobbyist, for instance, perhaps a 5-year limit before you can enter back into Columbus Square and become a lobbyist and lobby your friends, because term limits would have them be gone and they don't have those relationships to leverage to move legislation forward. And remember, a lobbyist gets paid because they meet with legislators. They have to report back how many legislators they met with. And consequently, you guys won't be surprised to know that there are very few lobbyists who ask me to carry bills. So why do you think that is? I'll leave it out there.
Well, let me
get rid of that. Create a moratorium and get rid of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. We need to shut that beast down. That is a beast. That is a giant a power suck that is across the street from our state capitol in Columbus, where a lot of just recent former politicians just cross the street and go and work for the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, influencing things that just subtracts from the voice of we the people. Joe, can I interject something really quickly? I want to share with our audience out there something that I'm working on through my friend group and my connections. I know Patrick Wood, who started Citizens for Free Speech. If you're out there, make some notes or just rewatch this on the replay and write this down. Citizens for Free Speech came out with what they called Citizen Ninja, and they did training on all sorts of things, and they had a spectacular series on how to spot propaganda. And when we look, Representative Gross is talking about the amount of brainwashing that has to go in, or actually, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but the conditioning that needs to happen in order for people to feel like, well, it's over the counter, so therefore, hey, it must be A-OK. But think for a moment about what happens with food. Representative Gross brought up shrimp, but just think about lettuce. Lettuce comes up frequently because somebody in some field somewhere found some deer poop, and suddenly all across the country, everyone goes crazy with these shutdowns, and they have to recall from shelves, and people follow that, and people understand that, okay, there's something, there might be E. coli in some lettuce, so therefore I'm going to take my lettuce off of my kitchen refrigerator shelf, and I'm going to take it back to the grocery store. Boy, I don't want anything to do with that. I'm going to shy away from that scary lettuce. Those same people will say it's over-the-counter medicine. I'm just going to take a whole bunch of these pills, no problem, all the time, unquestioningly. And the only way that people get to that point, that place where the Food and Drug Administration and these three-letter governmental agencies have that sort of power over their minds and what they're willing to put into their bodies, where the slightest question makes them question foods, but all other things they just sort of pump into their bodies, and not only unquestioningly, but actually get offended and upset with those of us who do question. That's madness to me. So it's a series on Citizens for Free Speech. I'm going to find out, actually have an email, I haven't heard back yet from Patrick Wood, on how to find those, because I want to share them out publicly. The more of us who know and start to get a sense for what the propaganda is, when you're watching a TV show or reading a news article, or you hear some politician speaking, make sure that you know when the alarm bell needs to go off. Like, wait a minute, somebody's manipulating me.
Jonathan, there's actually a national organization that does a class called the Foundation for Applied Conservative Leadership. And some of the things that you touched on are in there. I think that people need to look up we call it FACL, FACL, the Foundation for Applied Conservative Leadership. Just to give you an idea, it's Representative Thomas Massey is a FACL member. Jennifer Gross is a FACL member. So if you see something that you go, what's different about perhaps those two, one a federal legislator and one a state legislator, you might want to look into that class, because the people learn how to really understand the political process. And I think it's really, really good. It's free. They give you a free lunch. Believe it or not, there is such thing as a free lunch, but everybody at all levels needs to participate in a FACL training, FACL.
Jennifer, let me ask you a question here on House Bill 12, not 112, which we've been talking about, but House Bill 12, there is the Jeff, Dave, and Angie Patient Right to Try Act. So this is kind of like just on the opposite end of the spectrum there. So we were just talking about we have a right to say no. With this bill, you have a right to say yes.
That's right. That's right. This bill, the Jeff, Dave, and Angie Right to Try, this one is a bill that says you have a relationship with your physician. If your physician says you need ivermectin, budesonide, hydroxychloroquine, you need to be treated for Lyme disease, chronic Lyme's. That was new to me during COVID. I'm still reading, and the verdict is still out for me on what does that really look like. But if your physician meets with you, touches you, listens to your heart, and says this is the treatment you need, the pharmacist needs to dispense that medication. That particular bill is at a standstill right now, because the leadership wants to have an amendment that says that the pharmacist can deny your prescription. And so we're going back and forth because they say pharmacists should be the final say. Well, my bill already says if you, pharmacist, have a reason of conscience, just a reason of conscience, you have a moral objection, all you need to do is document reason of conscience, or you say that conflicts with it, like ivermectin. You can't take warfarin and take ivermectin. The warfarin's a blood thinner. There are some contraindications, or it's dangerous to that patient. That's all already covered in the bill. And right now, I won't mention, but my senator, had tried to get ivermectin filled in my district for treatment for cancer, and was unable to get it filled by the local pharmacist and at Kroger. And so, because the big national companies say, well, it's not our policy, we won't fill that. And so they're covered by corporate policy. But, when you don't get a prescription filled at a pharmacist counter, I don't think you go back to the pharmacist. You go back to the doctor who prescribed it when the pharmacist said no. But the amendment could work, but my grassroots right now is probably not going to accept the amendment, and so we'll see. We're at a standstill. I mean, we did, by the way, in HB 73, the father bill of HB 12. You might have seen in Illinois. Illinois has chosen to obey the words of the World Health Organization, and the state has said they've codified in law that Illinois will follow what the World Health Organization says rather than the state legislature. And in Ohio, we passed in 73 that the World Health Organization has no jurisdiction over the people of Ohio. So we did get that done in this bill last year. So I'm proud of that. But
Well,
Gotcha.
I'm curious how many people in Illinois voted for the World Health Organization.
exactly.
Because last I checked, we're a representative government. This whole notion
That's right.
that a bunch of people that you will likely never meet or have access to, or even might not even step foot in the same country you live in, deciding medical interventions on your behalf
Jonathan.
is
Jonathan,
ludicrous to me.
But it was their representative government who made that decision, which is why people need to really support liberty candidates, grassroots candidates, and citizen legislators, and why we need to have more people run for office. Look, I know that running for office is tough. I understand the garbage. I mean, murder threats and all that we deal with, but we need citizen people willing to sacrifice and give sacrificially to put their name on the line and get themselves over the line to be elected officials. Because when we have 65 Republicans and it's tough, I mean, I think I've got about 52, 54 votes for HB 12 right now, but last time I had 75. And I do have a legislator who's gone around person by person by person trying to poison the water on this bill. And he's very powerful, and he also has a big voice, and he's just wrong on this. And I have told him, and the reality is that everybody has the ability to be able to speak, but this legislator is in a larger conservative district than me, and it's just frustrating. If your legislator is not, they are smooth talking, slick tongued people, lizards. And if they're not doing, trust your gut, people, trust your gut. Okay, I've screwed up. I will be the first. My district will tell you I've been the first. I've screwed up. I screwed up with my grassroots. I've screwed up, but I will tell you that I am still fighting for the people of Ohio, and I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, great.
And,
So there's something connected to that. I don't know if you know this, Rep. Gross, but Linda Harvey was a guest on this program. She's awesome. She's not updated it for the most recent stats, but 2023, she has numbers for Ohio, specifically Ohio Republicans who have received pharmaceutical financing. So they're receiving campaign funding from Big Pharma and then deciding on issues like this. That to me is just egregious and awful and an outrage. I'm one of those people that's pushing for more transparency on that, because I'd love to see some of these people, like our current speaker, who, according to the information that I know, receives massive amounts of funding, and do the same thing that RFK Jr. did in D.C., which is to go and sit there, get on camera and on the mic and say, oh, by the way, I'm aware of the fill in the blank millions of dollars that you've received from pharma. So why is it that you feel authorized to comment and act in this way on behalf of pharmaceutical? You are conflicted. You need to recuse yourself in some way, shape, or form. That has to happen immediately. We are in a constitutional republic, and more of we the people need to insist on representative government. You don't have representative government when they run amok and just simply act in the interests of whoever's willing to stroke the biggest checks.
Yeah. I would say it's really a struggle, and I'm not defending pharma, but the people that, there are some, remember that we're limited in donations to about 15,000 at the max per year from any donor. I don't have a lot of those. I do have a few, but they're citizens. They're not a big company. But the challenge is the free speech of those writing the checks. And so it's a real tough place to be. You need to know where our donations are coming from, but it is fully public. and it is out there. The Joint Legislative Ethics Commission talks about where our money comes from too, as our income. So it definitely is out there for people to look up. And I would really encourage, look up mine, look up everybody's, look up where that money's coming from. Now, in a perfect world though, Jonathan, money should not influence, right? And when you look at mine, I think I'm one of the highest percentages of citizen donations. So there is a place, I forget what, if it's, I don't know, but there's a transparency site that talks about the percentage of donations that you get from people versus organizations. And then you can look at each legislator and see if legislators' majority is coming from lobbyists and things like that, that should be something that their voters are aware of so that they can hold them accountable. The challenge about limiting donations is that it's a free speech issue for the person writing. So whether it's an individual who writes a $250 check or it's a lobbyist who writes a $250 check, it's just a really tough place to be, because they consider donations of free speech. My aide, Jessica, her name's Moline now, she wrote her master's thesis on donations, and that with the Bliss Institute at Akron University. It's really good.
Yeah, but Citizens United blew that whole thing up, and it really messed up that whole system. So now we have it used to be an imbalance, because corporations, generally speaking, are in a better position to write larger checks to representatives, but it went completely haywire with Citizens United, and giving the ability of large corporations to write even larger checks ultimately. But Joe, one of the things I want to make sure we get into today's conversation is transactional gold and silver. That is something that I've asked Representative Gross to speak on. Rep. Gross, can you tell us the status of efforts? And just to set the stage, people that know me or may follow me on social media know that I'm the ex-Wall Street finance guy. These are the things that I'm tracking and talking about with great concern. Things like CBDC, which stands for Centralized Banking Digital Currency. That is a trap. It is a horrendous trap that gives far too much. People are worried about Federal Reserve. This is the Federal Reserve times 200,000. It is disastrous. It's the last nail in the coffin of freedom if we allow centralized banking digital currency to take root in the United States. What Representative Gross is working on is a beautiful answer to that. It is a counter to centralized banking digital currency. And best part, it really can't be argued against, and it's got great support on both sides of the aisle, all across the whole political spectrum. That really goes back to the roots. Our founding documents use, and they specifically reference, gold and silver as transactional currency. And now with new technology, with today's technology, you can use it works like a debit card to transact on physical gold and silver. It's a beautiful thing. Rep. Gross, can you bring us up to date on that?
Sure. So HB 206 that I sponsored, joint sponsor with Reardon McLean, is a bill that would make gold and silver transactional, meaning that instead of your bank account being backed by the greenback, which we know really in and of itself has no value, right? I mean, it's a piece of paper, but gold has value. So your debit account, rather than backed by gold in this case, by dollars, would be backed by gold or silver. And so what this bill would do is, and it's covered by the Constitution, unlike Bitcoin and other things. I'm for all of it, just so you know. I'm not speaking against those, but the reality is that it's covered in the Constitution, gold and silver, and that the states have the authority to make it transactional. Now, I have an account where I can buy gold. It's on an app called Glint, Glint. And so I bought a gram of gold, which, by the way, my husband just went to a jeweler. He's designing some stuff for some people. And gold, I think, per ounce right now is over $3,000. I have about $120 of gold on my Glint app, so I could take you guys to dinner right now with my debit card that is backed by gold. What that means is no matter what your income, your bank account could be backed by gold, and it's more stable than the dollar because you can't make more gold. And the bill allows for our depository to be right here in Ohio. My gold right now is in Switzerland. So if I want to go get it, which I wouldn't because right now I can't take a gold brick, not that a gram it's not very much, but I can't take a gold brick and go buy something, right? So right now I can buy the gold, put it in an account backed by gold, and then I use my MasterCard debit card just like you would use a bank debit card, only it subtracts and adds gold or silver. So this makes gold achievable and obtainable no matter what your income. And we know that the BRICS nations, that's BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, those countries are collecting as much gold as they can in order to be able to have their reserve. And so they're planning for, gold to become very much more part of our economy. And it's not digital, like you were saying, Jonathan. So this bill makes gold transactional, silver transactional, and gives the treasurer the opportunity to have a depository in Ohio. Now, Dallas depository could be used, at least it's on our soil, if Ohio did not want to do that. But Brinks or any number of other people are fully capable of securely storing our gold right here in Ohio. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to buy gold and keep it right here? This bill would allow all of that. I want to encourage your listeners to read the book Pirate Money by Kevin Lehman. He does the Economic War Room on the Glenn Beck station. And they have a retreat coming up in October that is in Dallas. And they're the ones that I learned. And it's their bill that I'm carrying. No lobbyist, just us carrying this bill. And we need to get this bill heard in the Financial Institutions Committee. That is headed by Representative Olslager. So if any of you are listening and you would like to get this bill heard, we really need to get a testimony on this bill in financial institutions. I also asked the speaker just Friday that if we cannot get it heard in financial institutions, that we re-refer the bill to another committee so that we might be able to get it heard. So you guys can't activate if you don't know this bill exists. And again, it's HB 206. My co-sponsors, just so you know, are Representative Levi Dean, Tex Fisher, Ron Ferguson, Demetrio, Lorenz, Ritter, Newman, King, Mullins, and Lear. So
you got a lot of people there
yes,
backing
and
this.
if you guys know who your representative is and they are not on this list, make sure you send them a copy of the bill and tell them they need to put some pressure on the chair or ask the speaker to re-refer the bill to another committee, because the dollar is not as stable as gold. And I understand that gold isn't as flashy, Jonathan. You can, well, pun not intended, because gold is flashy, but Jonathan, that the dollar just goes up and down and up and down, and gold is more stable. It's stable coin, right? So anyway, but
right,
that's
right.
I
No, it
hope
sounds
that
like a great,
makes sense.
yeah, it sounds like a great bill. So that is like still in committee, right? It has.
Yes, it's in the Financial Institutions Committee, and I have not yet had sponsor testimony. I'd like that bill to be able to go through the entire process so that we can get a vote and get it on the floor. There's no reason why we can't get this done. It doesn't require that the treasurer make a depository in Ohio, but it gives him the ability to be able to do that. And or if we get a Christina Rogner as a treasurer, I'm sure that she would be, I can't speak for her, but I hope that she would support us in this measure. So,
well, let's do this here because we only have literally a couple of minutes here.
All right.
And we got.
Do we talk about my food bill?
You talk about anything you want. So what is it you want to talk about? But we only have a couple minutes.
Okay, HB 134. This is the one,
Okay.
if I could do a call to action, I really encourage you. It is called the Micro Enterprise Home Kitchen Bill. I don't know if your listeners are aware, but in Ohio, it is illegal. Yes, illegal to sell your grandmother's favorite lasagna or fried chicken out of your own home. You can do baked goods. You can do baked goods. That's it. And this bill would allow you to get a registration so that you can sell your grandma's lasagna. You know, how many men, women who live at home or are at home, everybody has a kitchen. Right now, it is cost prohibitive. Ohio would require you to have an industrial kitchen, which costs $50,000 to $100,000. And the bill is ready to be voted out in the Ag Committee. I know that the chair of Ag, who is Rep. Klopfenstein, he's one of my co-sponsors. I've taken 14 amendments from the Department of Ag, as well as the environmental inspection folks who were opposing the bill, and they are all now fairly neutral. The Department of Ag has asked for an appropriation, which I do not want to put in the bill because then that gives the governor the ability to line item veto. And I would ask that we pass the bill as is with no appropriation. We don't need more inspectors to harass people in their homes. And let people make $100,000 making grandma's lasagna out of their own home. My co-sponsor is a Democrat, Humphrey. Her history is compelling. She was 1 mile away from the nearest grocery store and the nearest gas station with no car. And her family used to buy plates of fried chicken and candy and potatoes out of a lady's home. They called her the candy lady. That is illegal in Ohio, and we must give people the freedom to be able to buy, whether it's shawarma or enchiladas or whatever they're great at, to sell it out of their own home, and for us to be able to enjoy their products.
You better believe it. So that's a good one. That's still in committee, right? That is still
It
in
is,
committee.
but it is all the way through the process.
Ah.
I believe we have the votes in the Ag Committee, and I'm certain that we can get it over the floor and into the Senate. So we really need to do that. And I would ask that we not attach increased spending in the state with that, because I do not believe in expanding government.
No, heck no, heck no. Hey, Brian, we only have a minute or two. You have a question or something you want to?
Yeah, I do have a question, Representative Gross. Ivermectin hydrochloroquine. Can we buy that from the pharmacist or wherever in Ohio?
No, and there is kind of a misrepresentation of the Tennessee law as well. In Tennessee, you can buy it in Johnson City, Tennessee, which is near Mountain City, which is a little mountain where I spend some time. But the Tennessee law, it's not over the counter. It requires the pharmacist to have a collaborative relationship and agreement with a physician who then would be willing to take the ownership of if there's some adverse reaction or an event. It isn't truly over the counter. Remember that if you get an allergy medication, you take it off the shelf, you take it to the cash register, or you buy it. That is over the counter, or OTC. Even Tennessee does not have that. I do believe that Arkansas does have it ivermectin fully over the counter, but it isn't, guys, it's not just ivermectin that we use during COVID. That's why to say that we would just have ivermectin, okay, we have it, but dudes, there were so many other, like budesonide and hydroxychloroquine and other medications that we needed during COVID. Ivermectin was part of the treatment, but it wasn't the sole treatment in most cases.
Very good. One last question, but we, got to keep it short here. But
okay,
I really, no, that's fine. You're doing great. But I mean, I'm just saying that, just so that we're understanding that. I wanted to get into property taxes tonight. We don't have time.
Okay, we'll do it again.
We don't have time.
Another time.
Next time when you come on, we will. But what is just generally speaking, Jennifer? Just generally speaking, what is the put that up there? That is hold it still so we can see it. 37 trillion. That is the coolest thing. That is the national debt. Look at all those dollars. Just keep blumping.
And this is live. This is live while you guys are watching.
Yeah,
it's going
look
up
at that.
Hundreds of thousands. It's why I, myself, and Massey, and many of the congressmen that support him are against raising taxes of any kind. It's not just property. We've got to spend our money wisely.
What is the climate with the State House as far as any real substantial property tax reform?
We have veto overrides that we are trying to do of the 6 pieces of legislation that we passed in the budget. And right now, my understanding is we do not have the votes. So we have 65 Republicans, and we do not have enough votes to get any of those. Now we'll see. I think the speaker is working really hard to try to get some of these reversed, because we had 67 vetoes. Now we're not going to reverse all of them because they weren't. There are a couple that we're just not going to be able to do that. But the 6 pieces of legislation, you should be writing your legislator and telling them, you need to vote yes to override every single property tax veto. If that happened, we would be able to do some substantive reform. And that is the closest thing than to run a piece of legislation through the entire process, the House, the Senate, the governor. Those are right now waiting. And I have to laud my commissioners who just voted and agreed to double the homestead exemption in Butler County. So
Excellent.
Yeah, Joe, I'd like to clip out exactly what Jennifer said in the last 30 seconds, because I want to use that when I'm talking to people about getting signatures. That will definitely help us, and we appreciate it, Representative Gross. That's showing that it's not going to happen at the legislative level. We have to starve the beast, as we talk about.
Starve the beast. I'm one of 2, just so you know, myself and Tex Fisher. There may be others that I'm unaware of, but we are the 2 that axe the ohiotax.com. Is that correct? Axe the ohiotax.
That's correct. AXOH tax, right?
And,
you have made our video Heroes of Ohio, and we appreciate that. We keep adding more heroes as they sign our petition, but you and Tex Fisher, to the best of my knowledge, are the only ones that have signed it.
Tex was raised by Charlie Kirk, so that brings us full circle. Tex started working for Charlie Kirk when he was 19, and I believe he's still the youngest representative in the State House. I'm stinking proud of him. We met him in Mahoning County, and you're right. We need more Tex Fishers. There's no question about it. And hopefully, when Commissioner John Plechanik and I speak again next month in Mahoning County, Tex Fisher will be there, but Ohio Political News will be live streaming that event, and we look forward to meeting the Patriots in Mahoning County. Thank you. Thanks for all you do, Brian. All you guys are amazing. So thank you for your leadership and all that you've done.
Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. We're just messing.
Good night, guys.
You got it. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you
so
again.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
God bless.
God bless you.
God bless.
Thank you.
All right. Now, if we could only get 65 more state reps like her, we'd be all set.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We'd be all set if we could do that.
Yeah, that's all we got to do. All right. I've got some special guests here. I have a special guest, and I couldn't put your name underneath. I apologize, Michelle. This is Michelle Bonin. How are you tonight? You're from Seneca County. We're going to get into your story in just a second. I'll bring this character on. Tim, how are you? How do you pronounce your last name, Tim?
It's very easy. Steck Schulte.
Steck Schulte. I don't think I'll probably not remember it, but I'm going to try. Steck Schulte. All right. Yep. So, Steck, you're with the Coalition of Concerned Voters of Ohio. And so I'm going to give a brief intro here. The Coalition of Concerned Voters of Ohio, CCVO, is a grassroots activist organization that believes that the only way to preserve our freedoms and our constitutional rights is to make sure that our elections are safe, secure, and cannot be manipulated. Oh, good luck with that one. All right. So we'll be talking with Tim here, but I want to also bring on Michelle here for a minute, because, Michelle, you got a story to tell, and it all coalesces together. as we'll be jumping back and forth, and I think Marcell Strbich is supposed to join us also. So let me give an overview, and then you fill in the blanks, and you fill in a lot of what I can't fill in here. But something about earlier this month, the Board of Elections in Seneca County passed a motion stating that any active member who is publicly or actively working against the use of voting machines shall be ineligible to serve as a voting location manager. So in other words, if you say anything negative about the voting machines, that's it. You can't be a manager of voting. So this is in Seneca County. This is Lori Elchert, who is the director of the Seneca County Board of Elections. Now that right there is a pretty strong statement for somebody to come along and say, hey, your Second Amendment rights, your First Amendment rights are being violated, but somebody from the Seneca County Board of Elections is giving you that storyline. But it all started when you had trouble with the voting machines in Seneca County. And we were talking, just very recently to Monroe County, who also claimed that they had problems with their voting machines flipping votes. And so all you're asking, if I've got this correct, all you are asking as an activist is that the machines are looked into, that they're verified, that they're accurate. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That's what started my journey. Was I found out that the Secretary of State had been sent a request to have a third party verify if the machines could be accessed wirelessly or remotely, and that request had been denied. And that made me very suspicious. Of course, they have their own internal verification from the manufacturer, but they can write anything they want. So if we can't verify by a third party that those machines cannot be accessed wirelessly or remotely, then I do not trust that the machines cannot be accessed wirelessly or remotely.
Do you have any proof? Did you come across proof of votes flipping? I know in Monroe County, there's a lot of people out there that specifically said they saw from their machine that their votes flipped, which is why they wanted to have this looked into, just voting issue problems. I mean, is that something that you uncovered in Seneca County?
No, we didn't have that problem specifically. I just know that the election in 2020 did not turn out the way it should have, and I know that the machines were the issue, that they had been manipulated, and that they needed to be eliminated so that we wouldn't have that issue again.
Well, okay, let me, now you've been a strong activist, and it looks like you're a Marcell Strbich supporter. I'm just going out on the limb here. I'm going out on the limb. So maybe Marcell would join us, but I got to talk to this guy here. Tim, don't ask me your last name, please.
Tim S.
Okay, you're with this Coalition of Concerned Voters of Ohio, which seems, I was on your website. It's a fantastic website. You guys are doing a lot of work. What were some of the problems that you found in Seneca County then?
Well, I'll back up a little bit here. I think we're kind of really focusing on the machines, but I know that you also wanted to talk about, the petition situation itself and the Form 6D that we used. But I think it's interesting to look at this in a different lens. We're not even putting the voting machines on the ballot on the bullseye, let's say. This whole petition, the only purpose of the petition was to allow the citizens in any county that had the proper number of signatures to put it on the ballot. So they could put it on the ballot to return to paper hand counting, or they could keep the machines. So that is all the exercise, the purpose and the drive of this petition. So that the people didn't have a voice. So the citizens of Seneca had 2.5 times, the amount of signature needed to put it on the ballot, and that was denied.
And
So I
to
think
put
if
it
we
on the
look at-
ballot, Tim, was just to say whether or not you wanted to continue using these machines.
Correct, right. So each county would be a county by county basis, and if they looked at it from a, let's just say a cost dollar perspective and not even a security issue. And you had mentioned Monroe County, the last election they did in 2023, by using the machines, it cost them a figure of $63.60 to process one ballot.
Wow, what a waste! What a waste of money. So,
Right. So you take a small county like that, it would certainly behoove them to look at paper hand counting. They could easily get it done in a day. So, so that I just wanted to answer that so we don't get, in the weeds with just focusing on one thing. But to answer your first question then, Joe, we did see issues. We got calls from across the state, people reporting oddities. I'll be very pleasant about that. But we use the bulk of what you see on our website that was garnered from other states where there were forensic audits done, where there were court cases, Antrim County, Michigan, Northampton County, Pennsylvania. They all showed vote flipping, and so what we're using is just their material, saying here's the vulnerabilities that they actually found in these court cases. So, and we're just asking the question: do we have the same issues in Ohio?
yeah,
Since we're
yeah.
using the same machines.
Right. It's because all you're doing is saying, hey, we got to investigate this to see if we have the same problems here in Ohio. And you're right. We are talking about two issues here, and I want to keep them straight. I guess that's the most important thing. One is a petition. You filed a petition because you want to get rid of the voting machines. And then the second issue is, well, how do we know that these voting machines are really accurate? And that was a separate issue, kind of. They're both related, but there's distinctions there.
Right.
Let me just hit you on this for a minute with the voting machines and the accuracy, because we all know we have the gold standard here in Ohio, right? It's 99.999% accurate. Let's go over a few of these things. Well, I mean, you can't argue with the gold standard, all right? So you can't argue with it. We were just talking about gold with Jennifer Gross, and now we got the gold standard. We're going to have these.
Should we
Ohio's
tell 'em,
fool's
Tim?
gold.
All right.
Yes. Should we tell them what the standard is?
Yeah, all right. You'd go for it. Tell me what the standard is. Who wants to start? You want to start?
I
Or
will.
Michelle?
I will
All
give
right,
a
you start. Go
simple
ahead.
explanation. Yeah, I'll give a simple explanation. Then Tim can expound. I'm sure. So when they say that they do the audit after the elections, they only audit 5%, and they audit a printed paper ballot that they call a paper ballot. So they're just printing what's on the machine, calling it a paper ballot, and then it's only 5% of the vote. How is that accurate?
Yeah, it's only 5%, and at the most, right? Right, Tim? I mean,
Yes.
5% at the absolute most. But some of the problems with the voting machines are not. You're not able to catch them because they happen before the tabulator. Correct? So,
Yes.
So they wouldn't even be caught in the audit, would it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're saying that their standard, that we have the highest standard. I bet every other state is saying they have the highest standard too. I've often wondered that. I'm like, we live in Ohio. We hear that we're the gold standard. I'll bet every other state thinks they're the gold standard too. But they're all wrong if they're using machines, because it's a 5% in Ohio, 5% of the vote that was cast. But it's printed from the machine that we can't trust.
Yeah, and the manipulation could happen prior to the tabulator, right?
Yes.
Another.
Well, also, we're
Yeah.
not testing for malware when they do the certification test. In the source code, they only need to test up to 1% of the source code. So if we can't look under the hood to see what's going on, that just kind of leaves everything into question. But I think, the biggest thing when they talk about the gold standard, what they rely on is the fact that, no voting machine is connected to the internet or have the capability to be connected. But in March of 2024, we filed a public records request with Secretary of State's office to just gather the information. We wanted to see how the tests were done, who did the testing, the methodology that they used. And that went on back and forth for over a year. And we were finally denied access to it based on security reasons. Our lawyer fought that and is still pushing back to this day on that. But if you think about that, Joe, if there's nothing to hide, that would be the first thing you would put on your website. You would flaunt that and say, hey, here is the gold standard. Here's how we know that they are safe. But they refuse to give that to us.
Let me ask you another quick question here. Are the Dominion voting machines connected to the internet? Or can they be?
It's been proven in other states. We at CCVO, we're not saying that anything happened here in Ohio, but when you look at the vulnerabilities in the other states, Fulton County, Georgia, where they hacked it live in the courtroom, Antrim County, Michigan, where there were 6,000 votes flipped and they flipped them back. The Pennsylvania case that relates to what Michelle was talking about and what happened in Monroe County. So you see it across the state. We're not claiming that it happened here, but our biggest problem is just show us, prove to us that those aren't the same, contain the same vulnerabilities, and they're testing to 20-year-old standards. So,
Gotcha. All
take
right.
it from there.
I want to flip it back 1 second here because I'm getting dizzy here. We're going to flip back and forth. Michelle, I want to flip it back to the petition here for a minute. I want to wrap that up too, and then I'm going to open it up to everybody else for questions and stuff like that. But the petition itself, that was shot down by Frank LaRose in the Secretary of State's office, correct? The petition,
Yes.
And the petition was that you wanted to get those machines removed and hand count. Was that what it was about, or something else?
I see Tim shaking his head, so I'm going to let him take the lead on this.
Again, the petition wasn't to, get rid of the machines. The petition was to put it on the ballot so the people of the county could vote on it.
A vote on what?
On
keeping the
either
machine?
going back to hand-counted paper ballots or keeping the voting machines.
Gotcha. So it's just to get it on the ballot. This paper right here, this is Frank LaRosa's statement. I got this off your website. There's a wealth of information on your website.
Thank you.
It says the language of the code is clear. This is coming right from Frank LaRose. By its plain terms, it provides a mechanism for electors to vote on the adoption of such equipment in such a county. It does not, however, provide for you to repeal prior authorization through that same mechanism. In other words, and I don't understand this. In other words, you had a vote back, I think it was in 2004 when this law went into effect. You voted, somebody voted, okay, we want these voting machines. Now here we are. You can't undo that by law. And Frank LaRose is saying, by law, you can't do that, which makes no sense to me. You can do anything you want. You can do anything you want by law. You just change the law. And if he was so enamored by the 99.999% accuracy, I think he would be working with you guys, right? And be working with Monroe County and try to uncover. Monroe County said that the machine was absolutely inaccurate on some of their voting. And you had people that just piled into the Board of Elections room to complain about it. It still fell on deaf ears. That's not the way you run. That's not the way this government is run in this country. It's for the people, of the people, by the people, you name it. All right. Let me, one other thing. I got to bring Marcell in because Marcell made it. How are you, Marcell? So
Good.
we're going to get you back and forth, too, just to give a couple thoughts on this. Of course, you're running for the Secretary of State office. So, and you were also in Seneca County. Let me just throw this at you and you give a quick answer. But you were in Seneca County, the Board of Elections, when they had that big hara and Vivek Ramaswamy was there. Tell us a little bit about that, could you?
Yeah. How do you hear me today? Good?
Yeah, go. Yeah,
Awesome.
hear you
So
fine.
the situation was like this, and I think it's important that we go above. Let me take you to a higher plane here as my former Air Force officer. Let's go a little bit higher altitude. This issue of blacklisting election workers, while it really reared its ugly head in Seneca and Monroe County in conjunction with the ballot referendum that they tried to bring, has been going on across a number of counties in Ohio for the last several years, particularly accelerating after 2020 as more and more pushback has come out from people wanting to enhance transparency, oversight, and other measures of accountability, because over time, our election systems have slipped from our purview and they've become more of a vendor-driven, more of a political party-driven exercise. And so we've been told, we've got this. All you guys need to do is just show up or cast your vote early, and we'll handle all this other stuff. Well, there's certain counties out there, as you heard from Tim and Michelle, it's really hurting them to continue on financially along this path. And also you're seeing across the rural counties, fewer and fewer people are participating in this process of election day when it comes to working as poll workers to begin with. So what's starting to happen, and this is really concerning for the future of our in-person vote, is rural counties are consolidating precincts. And even in that meeting, Michelle can attest that part of the Board of Elections discussion involved consolidating precincts, which means there's going to be fewer polling locations, which means rural county voters are going to have to travel farther in order to cast their ballots. And so let's ask ourselves this question. Why are people disengaging from the process of election day, whether that be either voting or participating in it? And the theory of the case that I would tell you is they don't feel like the current process reflects either their values or the degree of involvement that they expect from the election system. If everything has been digitized to including our votes and they've been recorded inside of barcodes and QR codes that we can no longer see, and this whole process of auditing, which is less than 5% of the entire county's vote total, is going to be shoved at us with the 99.995% statistical accuracy talking point, then what's starting to happen is that as people who are legacy election workers move on in whatever way, naturally or because, like Michelle, they're personally offended and they don't want liability against them if something goes wrong, which is what I heard from her and others, then what does that mean for the future state? And I would describe to you that there's something far more insidious. There's something far more insidious going on right now. And that is, we have an election enterprise that has slowly but surely gone over to the side of National Association of Election Officials and professional lobbyist-based organizations that have more and more brought these election administrators under their umbrella and then given them guidance and told them, this is how you're going to train. This is how you're going to deal with unruly people. This is how you're going to manage this situation, which is difficult. And so what you have now is this advocacy group that has nothing to do with voters, who interacts with political appointees. So it's not like we can even change a Board of Election director. It's not like we can get a person as a Board of Election member, but then they're going to have to get into the system in a political way. And so this whole thing doesn't lend itself. This election enterprise across state law does not lend itself to public oversight and accountability. And that's what this incident reveals. So if you take what happened in Seneca, that is a microcosm of the disease. And the fact that that Board of Election didn't even apologize, that Board of Election literally read a statement. And if you were with me in that room and you saw these others come there, like Robert Sprague happened to show up, and he happened to say that the Board of Elections was being courageous in reversing their decision. Well, I would counter that with, there's nothing courageous about reading what your boss told you to read. What would have been courageous is to say, look, we made a mistake, and we absolutely need you all to keep participating in the process. Right. We will not destroy your faith and trust in the system.
All right, let me ask you a quick question, Marcell. A real quick question. You said that the Board of Elections they were acting very courageously. Who was it that twisted their arm to make the change? Just real quick, who was that? Was that
Well, you know, it was a
Vivek? Was that LaRose? Was that, who was that?
I mean, you had Vivek Ramaswamy write in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. And whatever he says at this date and time, because so many of those musical chair politicians of Ohio at the state level are wanting to stay within the system of governance beyond their term limited time, they're all going to fall in line. That's just the way our system has been working as a one-party state. And so what I think happened is once Vivek Ramaswamy weighed in, everybody realized that the gig is up. We're going to have to at least rescind this rule. How do we do that without looking like, you know, we really made a big mistake here? So everybody tried to go into that meeting, from what I could tell, with velvet kid gloves, you know, and let's all just kumbaya after this. So we still don't have that fervor in the Republican Party to hold each other accountable yet. And this would have been a perfect opportunity to pull this whole thing back. But like I'm saying to you all, we have been seeing this trend line in terms of election administrators acting in a recalcitrant manner. And what that means is when President Trump says, I want to go back to same-day voting, pre-printed and markable paper ballots, upfront citizenship verification, you can see absolutely zero movement from the election administrators or the state elected officials in that direction. It's almost like they didn't hear what he said, or they think that if they just ignore it, nobody's going to ask them, why aren't you doing it? What are we going to do about it?
Right.
This is the attitude they have.
Hang on one second. I want to get Brian in here. Brian, all right, got a question. Please, let's direct it to either Tim or Michelle. And do you have a question?
Yeah, I've been a long time poll worker here in Lake County, and we have the ESS machines, and I was always led to believe that we printed out our ballot when you made. We've got the machine that where you select the vote, and then it prints out the paper ballot. You're supposed to check to make sure that all of the selections were correct, and then we run it through the tabulator. Are we saying that that printed ballot is not really a printed ballot? Where are they? Where are the problems?
Tim, answer. Let me throw that to Tim. Did you understand the question?
Right. Yeah. Yes and no is the answer, because what you're getting is a receipt, but in the ESNS system, as Marcell mentioned, that vote is contained within the barcode. The Dominion ICX machine, the vote is contained in the QR code. So you can look at that, you can self-audit your ballot that it printed off, assuming it was correct, okay, and it didn't change the votes. You could look at it, but you can't read a barcode and you can't read a QR code and determine. So then you put that into a black box that has proprietary software that's not checked for malware. So you tell me, how comfortable and are you with that system?
So basically, what you're saying is that you could check the screen, you do a touch screen, and you get a paper printout, and you can look at the screen, and you can look at the paper, and you say they both match, but then it has a barcode on there, and you put that into the tabulator, and the tabulator reads the barcode.
Correct.
How do you know that the barcode matches what's on the screen on your paper?
You don't.
Thank you.
I think that's valid. But I can tell you that a few years back, there was an attempt to determine whether or not our new machines were able to be accessed, from outside, and my goodness, we got into all sorts of problems with FBI, and I personally was interrogated by 4 FBI agents over this whole election integrity issue, and the FBI, they said that they viewed any quote hacking into a system as like picking a lock on a door. So they trying to get proof that these machines are not tied to the internet. Unless you have the Secretary of State absolutely allow you to try it, you're getting all sorts of problems with the FBI, and the average citizen's got no way of verifying what you're saying. So I'm becoming a believer in these paper ballots because and I don't think anybody, certainly in Lake County, is trying to do anything illegal, but I would concur that we need to know absolutely, without any hesitation, that what we voted for and is counted accurately. So I'm sort of switching sides here on the machines, and we're heretofore I was saying that it seems we've got a good election.
Right. I could add a little tidbit to that. So in 2023, when Tom Howard and I, who couldn't make it tonight, formed this, one of the first actions we did was ask 12 counties in Ohio that had the Dominion machines to have Governor DeWine activate the Ohio Cyber Reserve. And it's their job to oversee cybersecurity. Part of their venue was the elections for Ohio. So that was a very simple ask. Again, we're not claiming anything happened, but when we're looking at these vulnerabilities in the other states, why wouldn't they activate the cyber reserve to put everybody's mind at rest and say, hey, we did a third-party audit, everything's fine, no issues, or they found something and we can maybe correct it. But the theme tonight is no transparency from the Secretary of State.
No, I got
I'm
you.
gonna jump in. I want to jump in and talk about the paper ballot real quick because people in Ohio are going to hear this election that we already have paper ballots or they're for paper ballots. There's an important distinction here. Ohio law qualifies a paper ballot as the same thing that comes out of the machine that we're talking about with the QR code and barcode and what we fill in with a pen and oval, which I call a pre-printed hand markable paper ballot. So in the Secretary of State race, you're going to hear both candidates talk about paper ballots. And they're both going to say, we're for paper ballots. But unless they don't define what do you mean by a paper ballot, do you mean the pre-printed hand markable paper ballot you fill out with a pen in an oval? Because that's what a paper ballot is, something you can verify before it goes into a voting machine. The other paper ballot, which is qualified by Ohio law, is the very thing that we were just talking about. It comes out of a voting machine, a touch screen, a ballot marking device. It's qualified that as a paper ballot, but it's not the same as a pen and oval, what I call pre-printed hand markable paper ballot. And that's going to be something I think that's going to trick up a lot of people when they're looking at their candidates saying, I want a Secretary of State that's going to support a paper ballot system. Well, just know that when somebody's saying that in Ohio law, there is a distinction between.
Marcell, what is Trump promoting exactly as far as voting goes?
He's promoting same-day in-person voting. He wants pre-printed hand markable paper ballots to replace electronic vote casting machines. He wants upfront citizenship verification at the point of registration and the ability to show full voter ID for all methods of ballot casting. And in Ohio, we are 0 for 4 in every single one of those categories.
I got you. Real quick, Michelle question. I just want to backtrack here for a second. What is the status of the petition right now?
Right now, it's been rejected by the Board of Elections and the Secretary of State, and by the opinion of the Seneca County prosecutor. So it's I'm going to defer to Tim because this is more his wheelhouse. What's coming up?
So Tim, any chance of getting this on the ballot?
Well, it won't happen this year, obviously, in November, but we disagree with the Secretary of State's advisory. So when this petition was denied, note the wording on that. It was an advisory. So he's advising not to use that language. But ironically, 3506.02 is where this hangs on. That's the law that is hanging on. And there's 3 ways to think about it. Adopt voting machines by the boards of election, by the county commissioners working with the board of election, or option C, by the people. The people never had a choice to vote in the first place, and that's what we were trying to bring about this go around. And we totally disagree with the language, because the language it's using, it says may adopt. Well, may isn't mandatory either, right? It's an option. So we feel very strongly that that was incorrectly denied Form 6D. We feel there's valid cases, and we're looking for maybe your group to come up with $100,000. We can get a good lawyer and fight this.
All right. Well, if you need $100,000, here's the guy to loan it to you right here.
Yeah, let me grab my checkbook. Thanks for volunteering me for that, Joe.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you all for joining us this evening. This is a very important conversation that has some complexity to it, and we're all working on trying to fight our way through this. A few things occur to me. The first is a great expression that was given to me a long time ago, and I just keep sticking with it and keep driving it out into public discourse, and that is vote in private, count in public. It's really as simple as that. Vote in private, count in public. We have strayed so far from that into this notion, and I like how Marcell put it, of handing over. We have abdicated the whole voting process into this smoke and mirrors, mirage, black box thing, this corporate interest, and now we're learning all sorts of stuff about it that we don't like. But here's a key element. We keep talking about, and admittedly, it's kind of a sexier topic to talk about what the machine might be doing, and could it be doing this, and what about vote flipping, and so there's all kinds of stuff to talk about in that, and there's all kinds of evidence that people are pointing to all over the country. But there's a far more important issue, and that is confidence, voter confidence. How do Ohioans feel? How do Seneca County voters feel? They're paying for it. We pay for this thing, and it is our fundamental principle. It's the foundational principle of any constitutional republic. Yes, I know that the left and Frank LaRose want to call us a democracy, incorrectly, but a key element is us knowing that we have the government that we were promised in the way that we were promised it. And this whole trust us, but you can't verify, is ludicrous on its face. It's unfortunate that we got to this point, but I happen to be one of those people that is now, I've listened to Marcell Strbich speak several times, and I can't possibly overemphasize my strong desire to get back to something that we can actually get our heads around. If it's less expensive, if it's faster, if it saves money, if it can reliably reproduce results that we, the people, can trust, good heavens, anybody standing in the way of that is an enemy. That's my view. I'm sorry to put it in such simple terms, but that's my view. We have, I believe it was the Secretary of State of Arizona, in a very similar circumstance a few years ago. There was a county in Arizona that decided, they didn't want to vote on it. They decided as a county, the Board of Elections, that they wanted to go back to paper ballots. The Secretary of State actually issued a letter threatening them if they went back. To me, those are key indicators. One more thing, I've said it before several times. I'm going to say it again. We have this notion of a constitutional republic, and it seems to have boiled down to right versus left, or whatever you want to call it, patriot versus traitor. On the other side of the aisle, we seem to have this whole notion that we have secure elections and we shouldn't ever question them. But let's put this Seneca County thing in perspective and have a little bit of fun with it. In Seneca County, that Board of Elections decided to try and block people from becoming elections facility managers who questioned the elections process. Well, let me outline briefly for you the people that Board of Elections blocked from managing. Hillary Clinton, Adam Schiff, Sheila Jackson Lee, Val Demings, Jennifer Wexton, Ron Wyden, Ted Lieu, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, Mark Warner. The list goes on. There is a about 19-minute video you can go to Hand Count Roadshow and click through. You can find a Vimeo that is a montage of the left saying exactly what concerned citizens say. I don't trust it. It's a video montage of all those people and a whole bunch of other left Democrats saying, we cannot trust our election systems. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to see a video evidence of something flipping or something not flipping or a barcode or a QR code. Those are gravy to the argument. What you need, the single most compelling and important argument, is we the people not trusting it. And if the far left, if Democrats can elect this montage, this whole array of Democrat representatives in government, and they all say, let's not trust the thing, then it is just beyond ludicrous in its face to tell the citizens of Seneca County that they're not permitted to mistrust. And then if they do, they're not permitted to meaningfully participate in the elections process. All of it is a broken, derelict system that needs to be cleaned up significantly so that we can get back to that key golden, in my book, that's the gold. The gold is trust, public trust, and right now we don't have it. I believe that polls indicate we have a significant majority of people who no longer trust our election systems. And in my book, that is the linchpin to revamping the system.
Yeah, I agree, because I think it's an insult to our intelligence to just say, hey, we got 99.99% accuracy, when it's like anytime we try to delve into it and look at the numbers, it's like, no, you can't look at that. You can't look at that either. And don't even ask. But it's 99.99% accurate. Well, if you can't look at it and there's no transparency, and other states are having these issues, and I know other counties in Ohio are having issues with the voting, then it needs to be looked into. If you have the gold standard, then the Secretary of State would welcome hand counting, because like in Monroe, all they want to do is they want to hand count the ballots to make sure it matched up with the voting machine. What's wrong with that? That was completely shot down and denied as well. So that 99.99 is a lot of smoke and mirrors, I think. But that's kind of some of the problems that we're running into. Okay, let me just go around, let's play horsey one last time. Brian?
Yeah, Joe, just what you said. I believe that transparency is also one of the keys to good governance. Honesty, integrity, and transparency is what I keep trying to promote. And if there's anyone that says that you can't go through a hand count just to verify things, and they're not being transparent, then that raises a huge flag, for me. And I would agree with you, Joe, that if any, whether it's at the state level or at the local level, if they won't allow that hand count of those quote ballots, that's a problem and needs to be addressed.
Let me go over to both of them. Let me go to Michelle here. Michelle, when you contacted Frank LaRose's office to get information or an explanation on some of this, what were you told? I'm just curious.
We did not reach out directly to Frank LaRose because it's impossible to get in touch with him directly. You just get an answering machine, leave a voicemail, and there's no response. Tim has been working over 2.5 years to communicate with Frank LaRose's office with a long list of unanswered questions because they just don't respond.
That is a shame. That is a shame. And that's part of the reason we need to expose this. Tim, so that you have not had any luck with Frank LaRose, Secretary of State's office, in getting some answers to your questions, like why you can't hand count, why you cannot hand count if you want to, in some of the runaround.
Right. Most of that stemming with the questions. We've asked a series of about 8 questions over the course of almost 2 years now. And we did put all the emails on our website So it's fun reading, and it's a master class in ignoring the question and coming around with a different answer. But we got sent all different directions, so it is absolutely no transparency whatsoever. And I'll, my final thought too is to echo what you guys were talking about, and I've got it in some of our presentations. There was a Rasmussen poll, one of the ones I could find, and it said basically 70% of American citizens, all voters, all parties, think there is some form of mistrust. So that's 7 out of 10. I know people that don't vote anymore, they don't donate anymore because they don't trust it. And we've said forever, even if hand counting costs twice as much as the machines, we should do it, because that's the gold standard, and that's what people will trust. But the beauty is, instead of costing twice as much, it costs 1/10 the cost. So,
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a good way to save some money. All right, Marcell, you're running for Secretary of State. If you were to become Secretary of State, you got to show some transparency, right?
Yes, you have to work with the rural counties on a path forward. That doesn't mean they get to just go into hand counting willy-nilly. They have to demonstrate that over 50% of the county wants to do it. And then when they meet that threshold, you have to come up with a system that guides them toward how to effectively do that. In other words, I call it a use case. So timeliness, accuracy, manpower, dual partisan observation, all these criteria have to be created, and they have to be executed in a cycle of an election that isn't going to be very busy. And you have to be able to assess the actual variables of how that went. And then if it works, then what you got to do is you got to codify it either into law or into directive or policy, and then you got to give the scaling of that, an option of that for other rural counties. So nothing is going to happen overnight, but the difference is my willingness to work with the rural county so that they don't have to pay $63 a vote, and to look at the counties not like a cookie cutter approach. Not every county is the same. And so I could foresee rural counties moving in the direction of this during my time as a Secretary of State, and proofing this concept within a year or two of having passed their referendum. And frankly speaking, that referendum denial or declination that you read earlier, Joe, that was legal reach for them to come to that determination. It wasn't listed anything prohibitive or restrictive in law for pursuing hand counting. They had to really reach for that. And that's why I think they kept it as an advisory notice. And that was all done by lawyers. That was all done by lawyers who know their client, and they know their client doesn't want to have a difference in a county's way that they approach counting. And so they get to the predetermined outcome by interpreting the law. They want to interpret the law in the way it is. But to be truthful, last year we put legislation forward that would have put language out there, which would have been very explicit. It would have told the legislature and anybody, election administrator, that there was a path for them to do it. But would you believe it, the legislature and the Secretary of the State at the time had no will to want to go forward on that. And so no matter what we tried, whether it was through the process or through the legislation or even through the goodwill and grace of the Secretary of State, nothing was determined to work because we don't have the right people in office to figure this out, or the will.
Well,
until I'm elected, that's going to be the case.
Yeah, you need people in there that have knowledge of cybersecurity, and then you need people that don't want to be a career politician, because that's where all of the problem stems from. I'm still perplexed where you got that shirt from, but that's okay. Michelle, I'll leave you last words of wisdom here, and I want to thank you again for getting in contact with us. And unless Jonathan, did you have something you wanted to say too?
I do have one more comment, but I'll wait until after Michelle. Or actually, I'll tee it up, because actually I'm going to spin us a little bit of a different direction. Those of you who follow the show know that Dan Schultz and I are the national voice of precinct strategy, which advocates for people to get involved locally within the Republican Party to put America first, constitutional conservatives all throughout, rebuild the Republican Party to be the voice of we the people as it's designed to be. I can't say anything about whoever Michelle Bonin's representative is, her state central committee person, but I have it on good authority. I actually spoke with Michelle on the phone about 2 weeks ago. Michelle is throwing her hat in the ring. I don't have anything negative to say about whoever it is that fills the spot currently, but I can say I'm one of those people that had, in addition to my comments and all the things that I'm doing, many of you know, I also run Ohio Rhino Hunters. My strong stance is that we need fighters in the Republican Party all throughout Central Committee. That probably, it might also mean you. Get involved locally, listeners. I want more of us to get involved at the local level in the Republican Party. Sorry, I got onto a tangent there. Let me bring it back to the point that I want to make. The point that I want to make is a tip of the hat to Michelle Bonin for stepping into the race for State Central Committee in Ohio. Michelle, tell us about that precinct where you're running and your bid for office, or Central Committee, rather.
Yes, it's going to be the Central Committee in Seneca County, and the office is currently occupied by actually a neighbor just down the street from me, and so I'm more than happy to step in because she's willing to let me take the lead on it. And I'm very tenacious, so it takes a lot for me to stop. I'm a bulldog in a fight, and I don't let go. When I know I'm right, I stick with it, and I'm willing to weather any kind of persecution that comes with it. The Lord has just built me with this tenacious attitude, and so I'm more than happy to step up, change the atmosphere of how my government is running. I do not like the direction that I see it going, and so therefore I will step up to the plate.
That is awesome, and that is terrific. So I want to thank you again, and Tim, Marcell, everybody. Thank you, Brian and Jonathan. Guys are the greatest. So good luck with everything. Please let us know if there's any new developments on all that, okay?
Marcell, thank you. Let us know how we can help you, Marcell. Thank you.
Reach out to us. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Bye, Jonathan.